let's move on.
Well,
I'll go on mute.
thank you so much for the invitation. And may I ask other people to also mute themselves? It looks like there's a few of you that are, your speakers still open. And just a few words before I actually begin. First of all, I'm in my third day of COVID. So if I appear a little loopy, it might be because I really am. I've had some high fevers, but I'm happy to report it hasn't been that bad. I've been um, just fever and cold symptoms, not and a little body ache, but I'm coming out of it. I feel much better today. But I really wanted to commit and be here in spite of sort of this little malady. Um, the other thing that I like to explain to people is this is a mirror behind me. You can see my arm waving. My husband Joe's right there. He's dressed in turquoise like me, matchy matchy, and he's faithfully always here and so supportive, which is a great gift. And the other thing I want to say is that in all the time that I spent with Pir Vilayat when I was in the Sufi order, he said to us many, many times in his instructions during leader training to teach from what we know and teach from what's relevant for us. And so all of you that maybe are my Facebook friends, you know that 5 weeks ago we lost our amazing, remarkable black lab. And it's broken my heart. And yet through the broken heart, many blessings come. And so many kind friends have been so supportive. So I wanted to honor Parker, aka Sparky, and so many others, which I will get into. So let's take a breath and I'd like to begin with the Sufi invocation of Hazrat Inayat Khan. If you would put your hands as if a cup receiving the divine elixir in this receptive modality. And we say the Sufi invocation. Towards the One, the perfection of love, harmony, and beauty, the only being, united with all the illuminated souls who form the embodiment of the Master, the Spirit of guidance. Take this sacred vibration that's been created in the mandala of your mouth and blow it into your hands and let it become a blessing flowing over and through your being. So today, it's something I've been looking at myself and working towards. The topic is transforming grief towards joy. And I'd like to begin with a quote by Pir Murshid Inayat Khan. Put your trust in God for support and see God's hidden hand working through all sources. When Pir Moinadine wrote me and asked me if I'd present, I picked this date on purpose because it's a significant date if we remember, and who can forget if we were alive, that today is September 11th. And it marks a fateful and tragic day in the history of the United States of America. In 2001, now 21 years later, hard to believe, we still remember 9/11 and all the attacks that took place about this time. And I will note those because I think it's important for us to remember and tune in. At 8:46 Eastern Time, Flight 11 crashed into the North Tower of the World Trade Center. At 9:03, Flight 175 crashed into the South Tower of the World Trade Center. And at 9:37, Flight 77 crashed into the Pentagon. I would ask that we take just a few moments to offer a silent prayer, remembering all those who lost their lives, all those who lost their loved ones, for ourselves and for all the citizen friends of the United States that were witness to this atrocity. We pray for all those souls, and we also remember in our prayers the heavy karmic debt that the perpetrators and planners of this event must bear upon their souls. Offer your love, your light, your peace, or I should say God's love, God's light, and God's peace through your breath into the atmosphere. Amen. Well, if we allow it, our faith and courage lifts us up and carries us through such moments. We may not always feel that way. We may feel as if we're crumbling, but it's okay, because ultimately, if we can just know that we have faith and through that gain courage, we will be able to lift ourselves up through bewilderment in life. And when tragedy strikes, we can encounter trials and tribulations with courage and faith. Faith carries me through. I don't know about you, but that's the only way I've gotten through life. And of course, trials and tribulations, loss, tragedy, it is inevitable in life. For us to think otherwise is foolish. The first noble truth of the Buddha is there is suffering. So we have to realize that. If we trust in the teachings, we can gain perspective from our own life's experiences. And gosh, we get so much knowledge and perspective from that. Then we know there is suffering, but what we do with the suffering brings us to an essential understanding of the meaning of suffering in life. And Hazrat Inayat Khan teaches us the pain of life is the price paid for the quickening of the heart. The pain of life is the price paid for the quickening of the heart. In Psalm 27, we read, "The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord protects me from danger. Why should I be afraid?" And I heard many times through my life from both my mother and my grandmother, and they said it time and time again to me. They were strong women, raising strong women. My sister's here, Mudita Sabato, and we were 4 women together in life. My mother's father died when she was quite young, and my mother and father were separated when we were quite young. But this is what they always said to me: "That which does not destroy you makes you stronger." Who knew they were quoting Nietzsche? Anyway, they were wise women, and they gave us many good teachings to help us endure the waves and the storms of life. A few days ago, on September 8th, the beloved Queen Elizabeth II of England passed away. And tomorrow, September 12th, will be the 6th Urs of Hidayat Inayat Khan, the son of Hazrat Inayat Khan. Let us offer the prayer for the dead given to us by Pure Murshid Inayat Khan for this beloved king and for our beloved Murshid Hidayat. I will read it here. O thou, the cause and effect of the whole universe, the source from whence we have come, and the goal towards which we are bound, receive these souls who are coming to thee into thy parental arms. May thy forgiving glance heal Queen Elizabeth and Murshid Hidayat's hearts. Lift them from the denseness of the earth, surround them with light of thine divine spirit. Raise them up to heaven, which is their true dwelling place. We pray thee, grant them the blessing of thy most exalted presence. May Queen Elizabeth's and Murshid Hidayat's life upon earth become as a dream to their waking soul. Let their thirsting eyes behold thy glorious vision of sunshine. Amen. So I'm just going to ask, I'm going to put it out there. Maybe you can raise your hand if the answer is no to this. Who here today hasn't been touched by loss in their life? Is there anyone? Yeah, it's fact of life. So this this loss might have been a missed opportunity, a lost relationship, or the death of a loved one, and maybe these have been experienced many times throughout life. I'd be willing to bet that we all have been there, and because of that, we have a sympathy towards others who are there. The further question is, what do we do to handle this loss? And does it define us and kind of capture us in this caught place of loss and pain? Or can it propel us to a greater insight, wisdom, understanding, and ultimately greater compassion? have to apologize. My eyes are very bloodshot, but again, I'm in COVID and I'm a little feverish, so I'm sorry they're not as clear as I would like them to be. Well, in the Tibetan book of Living and Dying by Sogyal Rinpoche, he writes, each time the losses of life teach us about impermanence. They bring us closer to truth. When you fall from a great height, there's only one possible place to land, on the ground of truth. And if you have the understanding that comes from spiritual practice, and I know we all do, then falling is in no way a disaster, but it's a discovery of an inner refuge. And I think this is so significant because I do sometimes see people trying to anesthetize themselves with different substances or different experiences. But here he's saying, if we can let this turn us to the inner refuge, that's our sanctuary, that's our refuge. And the practices are the things that we can lean into. Now, Inayat Khan teaches further about this. The heart is not living until it has experienced pain. The heart is not living until it has experienced pain. Murshid also says, the pain of love is the dynamite that breaks up the heart, even if it's as hard as rock. I love this quote because it reminds me, one semester in undergraduate school, I studied the life and teachings and works because we were looking at his diaries or journals of Michelangelo. And this quote about, even if it's as hard as rock, when you've witnessed, and I'm sure you've seen them perhaps in person, but at least in photos, the subtlety and the suppleness of the skin and the muscles that Michelangelo was able to bring forth from the stones. And in his journals, he says, he would contemplate or meditate upon the stone, and the form emerged for him. He just had a knowing of what that piece of stone was to be. And so think of it, taking that hammer, chiseling away, breaking away that rock to allow these beautiful sculptures to emerge. I think that's what God is doing to us. And if we allow ourselves, we can become this beautiful, masterful piece of work that God intended us to be. Well, Murshid further says, the heart sleeps until it is awakened to life by a blow. It is as a rock, and the fire flashes out when struck by another rock. When I was living with the Tibetans in the refugee camps in Dharamsala, I loved it. I mean, it's so primal, and some of the people from the Amdo region that are real like cowboys. I mean, they're the cowboys of Tibet. They'd carry these beautiful leather, tooled pouches around there. It was kind of like a fanny pack, but it was real fancy, ancient one that they would carry in Tibet. And inside there would be pieces of flint, and they would use that to make that spark that would create a fire. So we have that as a principle and a manner of creating fire. But when those blows come to our heart, if we can look inside and see the blessing of it and not react, but feel it, it can soften us and allow the life and light to come forth. He also says, these are 4 quotes, every blow in life pierces the heart. Excuse me, my voice is a little funny. And awakens our feeling to sympathize with others. So important. Every blow in life pierces the heart and awakens us to a feeling of sympathy with others, and every swing of comfort lulls us to sleep, and we become unaware of all. Isn't it true? When we're happy, are we thinking about God? I hope so. I hope you give thanks for every good thing, and I hope you give thanks for every sorrowful thing, because they're all part of what makes us real. I know I was traveling with Huruna Maima at one point, and we were staying at the abode on this particular instance, and she was often troubled with back pain. And so I called her Masi, like Auntie, Masi G. Masi G, can I rub your back for you? She said, oh, yes, Nuria, please do. Then I put my hand on her back. She went, oh, how do you know where the pain is? I said, because I also have pain there in my back. She said, nah, now you know the meaning of your suffering. When you understand your suffering very well, you can relieve others' suffering and you can have compassion for it. It was a great teaching. So when I feel pain, I think of others that perhaps even have worse pain in their bodies, and I try to send love and light and healing. I might not even know them, but at any rate, I try to remind myself of this. Well, these 4 quotes come from the Bolasaki, and it happens that they were all given within a week's time. We have to think what Murshid must have been thinking about or experiencing at that time that he wrote those quotes or said those quotes. So, but I need to ask you, because sometimes I think I hear people say Murshid said this, and then they have an interesting interpretation of it. So I'm saying, well, is Murshid telling us that we should seek out pain in life? Well, I say no, absolutely not. You know, Murshid Hidayat always told me, and if you look at some of the photos of Murshid in the garden with his family and with children and with other people, he always was smiling. I mean, some of his other portraits are serious, and there's a kind of blessing or a transmission of darshan that comes through those photos. But Murshid Hidayat told me no matter who came before Murshid Inayat Khan, no matter what their troubles were, no matter what the situation was, they always left with a smile on their face, that he was always very uplifting. And so we know Murshid endured so many challenges in his life, and if he can do it, we can too. I often also think of Rumi, what he went through with the pain and loss of Shams, but you know, it created something beautiful in him that's now an enduring legacy. So if we think of those things and tune to those things, this pain, loss, suffering can help mold us in a beautiful way. So, you know, I just again like to say that pain, loss, suffering can be a catalyst to awaken within us, like Karunaji said, more compassion and more understanding and sympathizing with others. When we summon our courage to endure and let God's hand knead our hearts, or like Michelangelo chipping away the hard, rocky parts, it makes our hearts pliable and supple, not rigid. Inayat Khan says, in the heart of sorrow, there is a seed of joy. And some of these quotes I want to say, my dear friend Gemma Erickson and my beautiful sister Mudita Sabato, when we first lost our black lab Parkers, aka Sparky, they were sending me these beautiful uplifting quotes of Murshid's, and I kept them close, and I wanted to weave them into this time together. So we have words of inspiration that are spoken around loss. They're in our common vocabulary. So we hear people say this. It's always darkest before the dawn. There's a silver lining in every dark cloud. There's light at the end of the tunnel. Your faith will heal you. Well, today I'm wearing this beautiful, won't you agree? I'm going to show you. It's a beautiful pearl mala that my sister Mudita Cecily Sabato brought me as a gift from India years ago. And I've been wearing it, and today I wear it because I have to remind myself, it becomes a touchstone in my grief, that these beautiful pearls were cultivated by a foreign substance entering the oyster shell. And then the oyster responds by protecting itself by putting this coating around this substance. And from this foreign element, something really beautiful is created. And so I ask, can we let our pain of loss and our grief and any suffering that we may have create something beautiful within us? I hope so. I hope we can let it do its work. Excuse me. There is a practice that Hazrat Inayat Khan gave, and it goes like this. I'm sure all of you know it, but we'll do it together, and I'll say a few words of commentary around it. So he gives us this practice, and he talks a lot about making this gesture, even if we do it with our eyes, to help offer protection and allow grace to enter our being. So the instructions are, first we make a horizontal line across our hearts, and the horizontal line is a negation. It's the line of limitation. In Sufi terms, we might say this is a fana, Excuse me. And while we say that, we say, this is not my body. So there's that negation. Or it could even be like the zikr, la ilaha. There's nothing. And then we draw a vertical line that's descending. And this signifies the descent of divine consciousness into our being, piercing that plane of limitation. In Sufi terms, we could call that a baka, or a kind of resurrection that we could experience. And we do this while affirming, this is the temple of God. I don't know if all of you do this practice, but I was instructed by Murshid Hidayat to do that practice before presenting, before offering universal worship, and so on and so forth. I know some of you have taken instruction from him also and know that practice and the benefit of it. It's a good reminder that we can do nothing without the grace of God animating us. So let's do this practice. We can do it just 11 times. And we'll make the sign of the cross first with this line of limitation, and then this line of piercing through that, bringing divine consciousness into our being. So let me get my prayer beads in hand. Just 11 times. This is not my body. This is the temple of God. This is not my body. This is the temple of God. This is not my body. This is the temple of God. This is not my body. This is the temple of God. This is not my body. This is the temple of God. This is not my body. This is the temple of God. This is not my body. This is the temple of God. This is not my body. This is the temple of God. This is not my body. This is the temple of God. This is not my body. This is the temple of God. So this practice, it can serve as a reminder to tune to a higher plane during difficult times. And it's important that I think we ask ourselves, what belongs here in this heart, which is the temple of God? I mean, in our lineages, we do a lot of practices of purification. It's not because, we're bad people, but it's because there are impressions in there. They could be, if you think of it as the Buddhists would, karmic seeds from past lifetimes, or maybe it's just from this lifetime. There are things there, there are impressions that have been put upon us and impressions that arise from within that need to be softened and purified. So it's good to look at that and to try to think of those purification practices as cleaning out the temple of the heart, so to speak. So I would ask, I'm telling this all for myself, by the way. I'm not trying to lecture to you. You all probably know it, could do a better job than I'm doing. But I will say it, since I have the floor, that when trouble comes, I have to remind myself, and you can remind yourself, to keep to your faith. Pain and loss may be a blessing in disguise, and I've lived long enough, I just had a birthday, by the way, that I know that to be true, that, oh my God, when I look back on the pains and sorrows of my life, they were incredible blessings in disguise. So when viewed as transitional points or bridges to new experiences or new places, new quests, new understandings, if we can discipline and turn our minds towards thinking in this way, it will create within us the light of patience fortified by prayer. See all hurts and all disappointments and loss as temporary. The writer Sir Tom Stoppard once remarked, and I love this, look at every exit as being an entrance to somewhere else. Look at every exit to being an entrance to somewhere else. So I'd like to share with you a story. And this story, I want to thank my husband Joe for reminding of it when I was in such deep sorrow around the loss of Sparky, aka Parker, our black lab. And this story is from the Buddhist tradition, and it goes like this. It's about a woman, and her name is Kisa Gautami. Kisa Gautami. Well, Kisa lost her only child. It was a very young son, and she just couldn't accept his death. She carried him from neighbor to neighbor and begged for someone to give her medicine to bring him back to life. Well, one of the neighbors told her to go to the Buddha, who was located nearby, and ask the Buddha if he had something or some way to bring this boy back to life. Kisa found the Buddha and pleaded with him to bring her son back to life. And the Buddha instructed her to go back to her village and gather mustard seeds from the households of those who had never been touched by loss or death. From those mustard seeds, the Buddha promised he would create a medicine to bring her son back to life. Relieved, she went back to the village and she began asking her neighbors for mustard seeds. All the neighbors were willing to give her mustard seeds, but they told her that their households had indeed been touched by loss and death. As the day turned to night, she was still without any mustard seeds, and then she realized the universality of loss and death. According to the Buddha, and a Buddhist verse, her story comes from Kisa said after not finding any mustard seeds, "It's not just a truth for one village or town, nor is it a truth for a single family, but for every place and everything and everyone. This is indeed what is true. It is true that everything is impermanent. Everything is impermanent." With this new understanding, Kisa was able to calm her grief, and she buried her son in the forest and then returned to Buddha. She confessed to Buddha that she couldn't obtain a mustard seed, not even one, and she could not find even one household untouched by death or sorrow. Here's an interpretation of what the Buddha imparted to Kisa. He said this: "Dear one, the life of mortals in this world is troubled and brief and inseparable from suffering, for there's not any means, nor will there ever be, by which those that are born can avoid dying. All living beings are of such a nature that they must die, whether they reach old age or not. As early ripening fruits are in danger of falling, so mortals born are always in danger of dying. Just as the earthen vessels made by the potter ends in shards, so is the life of mortals. Both young and old, both those who are foolish and those who are wise, all fall into the power of death and are all subject to death. Of those who departed from this life, overcome by death, a father cannot save his son, nor relatives their kinfolk. While relatives are looking on and lamenting, one by one the mortals are carried off. People die, and their fate after death is according to their deeds. You need to be mindful. Not from weeping, nor from grieving will anyone obtain peace of mind. On the contrary, their pain will be greater and will ruin one's health. Dead bodies cannot be restored by lamentations." The Buddha instructs Kisa to reject grief. Do not allow it to enter your mind. Seeing one dead, know for sure, I will never see them again in this existence. And just as the fire of a burning house is quenched, so does the contemplative wise person scatter grief's power expertly, swiftly, and even as the wind scatters the cotton seed. The one who seeks should pull out the arrow of lamentation. The one who seeks peace, should pull out the arrow of lamentations, useless longings, and the self-made pangs of grief. The one who's removed this unwholesome arrow has calmed themselves, will obtain peace of mind. Verily, the one who has conquered grief will always be free from grief, sane and immune, confident, happy, and close to nirvana. Good advice. Well, Kisa entered the first stage of enlightenment from her experience. See how it can help us? She decided to become a disciple of Buddha and went on to become the first female arhat. Now, an arhat is the one who's gained insight into the true nature of existence by unmasking the ego, which hides the true self. With this spiritual attainment, Kisa was able to dispel all illusions and misapprehensions, and thus the understanding of the true nature of reality, leading to a state of liberation from the endless cycle of rebirth. So here we ask ourselves again, can we find a blessing that has come from our own loss or pain like the Arhat Kisa? Perhaps to miss opportunity was really a cosmic pause button getting pushed until a better opportunity arose. Perhaps a broken relationship leads to an even more fruitful, loving relationship. The pain and despair of a loved one may serve to lead to a greater understanding that opens us up more and develops a compassionate heart. And God willing, these things that are blows and heart hurts, they can lead us to our own enlightenment. I remember my beloved teacher, Kamtul Rinpoche, His Eminence Kamtul Rinpoche. He passed within the last few years. So many have. My mom, my dear Murshid Dayat, my dear Karuna Maima, my dear Kamtul Rinpoche, my dear puppy. So many have gone, but each one gives me a special gift and informs my being in their passing. I have to remind myself, and I'm reminding all of us, that God willing, again, it will lead towards enlightenment. But Kamtul Rinpoche used to teach me. When I stayed with him in his monastery, my front door was next to his front door. And a lot of people would come day and night. They'd, of course, knock on my door and ask to see Rinpoche. And then I'd go ring the bell, and then I'd ask the people in the household, there's someone here to see Rinpoche. Is he able to meet with people? Oh, my God. I can't tell you the things that I saw and heard from people when they came to visit him. And they would be, so I remember one time I saw someone that was growling like a wolf or something and just foaming at the mouth and he wasn't epileptic. He was just having in a weird state of mind and he was out of it. And they took him into this room. Rinpoche would come down. He had a little room on this platform kind of balcony that he would meet with people. And when the man left, he was calmed. He seemed well put together. He was walking of his own volition, not being dragged by relatives. And I asked Rinpoche one day, I said, oh, Rinpoche, you bear so much. How do you endure all these things that are brought before you? And he said, Nuria, I think of each one of these beings as a beautiful stepping stone that enables me towards my own enlightenment. And in that spirit I serve. It's a beautiful, beautiful practice. So I need to check my time. We're still doing okay, right, Moinadine? Since I've been talking a little bit about Tibetan Buddhism, and I know that our beloved Pure Murshid, Hazrat Pure Murshid Inayat Khan, studied Buddhism because he traveled throughout the Himalayas studying with different masters, and in some of the very esoteric healing practices, there's evidence that he's brought some of the seed syllables from Sanskrit and Tibetan into the practice. So I'd like for us to conclude. I will also do a prayer at the end, and then we can hopefully have some conversation. And you all know this practice, but I'd like to give a little bit of a commentary on it. It's Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. And this is 6 syllables. So it's Om Mani Padme Hum, 6 syllables. These represent the 6 perfections, also known as the 6 paramitas. And these are the antidotes to our biggest mental obstacles, such as anger, greed, jealousy, laziness, and so on. And these attributes work together, enabling us to deal with everything that life throws us. It's the medicine. I've always said that our spiritual practices are divine medicine. They can help us, we can lean on them. By developing these attitudes, we slowly but surely realize our full potential, which is what I hope we really want to do in this life, because then we can be of the most benefit to ourselves and to others. Well, these 6 paramitas are: number 1, generosity; number 2, ethical discipline of oneself; patience and tolerance with others; diligent exertion, and that has to do with bringing our practices to be a living presence in our life. It's also referred to as effort, so you may hear it as diligence, exertion, or effort. And then the fifth one is meditative concentration, and all these lead to ultimately wisdom. So I would like for us to do the practice, and I'll keep count for us. We're just going to do it, and I'm going to do it rather quickly, but you can do it at your own pace, and don't worry. But I don't know how many people here, 26. So if we do it 101 times, we'll have accomplished 2006 mantras together, and we put it out into the atmosphere. So I'll start slow, but then I'll pick up the pace. Om Mani Padme Hum. 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 Think of this mantra. You could think of a great being. It could be the Buddha of compassion, Chenrezig, sitting in your heart, and the mantra is going from your mouth, encircling the deity. So there's like a rosary of this mantra going around, but it's also going down your mouth, up through your base chakra, and up through your crown as well. So these meditations are beautiful and deep and rather complex, but it helps get us out of our thinking mind. So if you can use a visualization like that, it's fine. If not, just think of this mantra from your mouth into the atmosphere. Om Mani Padme Hum. 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 Om Mani Padme Hum. Mani Padme Hum. Mani Padme Hum. Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. Mani Padme Hum. Mani Padme Hum. Om 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 Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. 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 Om Mani Padme Hum. 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 Om Mani Padme Hum. I'm doing them 7 more times. Om Mani Padme Hum. 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 Breathe. I added the extra 7 because typically in Buddhist practices, while we do our practices 101 times, the Buddhists do them 108, and that is to honor the 108 sutras, special sutras, teachings in Buddhism. So I'd like to dedicate any merit, and we're not going to close the window yet, I hope, but I just kind of want to conclude this portion. I want to dedicate any merit that has emerged from this time together. May it reach out in ever-widening circles, touching all beings. And who doesn't need it? My God, there's so many places, people, creatures, the earth that needs peace and relief. May all beings be happy and have the causes of happiness. May all beings be free of sorrow and the causes of sorrow. May all beings live in a world free, in equanimity, in peace. We ask this in all the Holy Ones' names. Soha. And just a little reminder that coming up, what's the date today? The 11th, in 2 days, we will be celebrating, that's sort of noted on your calendar, I'm sure you already have it, but we will be honoring September 13th. In some traditions, we call it Hijrat Day. And it was the birth of the message when Murshid brought the message to the West. It's a very special time. Think about it. Why are all these things happening around here around this time of the year? You know, Mother Mary, the Blessed Virgin Mary, Mother of Jesus Christ, her birthday was on September 8th. It was the day that the great Queen Elizabeth passed. So there's a blessing in that. And the rainbow that appeared over the castle. Beautiful symbol. So let's cup our hands again as we say the final prayer. Khatum. O thou, who art the perfection of love, harmony, and beauty, the Lord of heaven and earth, open our hearts that we may hear thy voice, which constantly cometh from within. Disclose to us thy divine light, which is hidden in our souls, that we may know and understand life better. Most merciful and compassionate God, give us thy great goodness. Teach us thy loving forgiveness. Raise us above the distinctions and differences which divide men. Send us the peace of thy divine Spirit, and unite us all in thy perfect being. Again, take this sacred sound, blow it into the palms of your hands, and let it be a blessing for your entire